raid on a federal arsenal in Harpersburg, Virginia, to try to arm slaves, spark a rebellion, slave insurrection. He said in one of his last letters before he went on this raid, which ended up being hanged for, that he was determined to become what he called God's instrument to purge this land of blood. Now, the border states, as those states on the dividing line between the free states and the slave states, are the most reluctant to engage in any kind of a concerted effort for secession. Realize that if war came, that their state would be the battlefield. So the states of the upper South, border states like Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, even Tennessee, Arkansas, North Carolina, Maryland, the secessionist sentiment is considerably muted compared to the Deep South. A deep concentration of secessionists, fire eaters they call them, in South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama. The other ones ready to go out first, knowing that if they have, if the other slave states went with them, it'd be quite a while for the Union armies to reach them if they ever did. In 1861-62, there's a very real possibility that the South could win the Civil War. So, politics of the late 1850s is obsessed with this continuing division between the North and South. Suspicion is deepening both sides. Neither the North nor the South really trust each other anymore. Essentially, all these social and political institutions have divided between the lines of North and South. In 1860, the only really national political party left was the Democratic Party. There's a lot of any kind of representation of both the North and the South. And even divisions between the Democratic Party are starting to appear. Even efforts at compromise are being met with scorn and mistrust. The more one side tried to give, the other one tried to take more. Now we get to the 1860 election in Arkansas. We see that on the state level, the state trying to essentially trying to ignore the sectional controversies, but on the federal level, it's presidential and Congress increasing agitation for secession, increasing concentration on secession issues. I talked about Thomas C. Hyman last time. Arkansas congressman elected in 1858. He immediately became a political power in his own right. As he Arkansans who were in agreement with him on the need for the South to declare its independence from the North, began backing him. And Hyman, in his issues, became so powerful within the Democratic Party that he was able to start supplanting the dynasty. Well, the dynasty is kind of divided. Henry Rector is a cousin to the Conways and the Seviers, but he's not really the dynasty candidate. So I can instead go with another cousin, R.H. Johnson. So essentially, the 1860 governor's race, so you have two Democrats facing each other. And across the country in the border states, you see that same thing happening over and over again. The Democratic Party splitting between two factions. Not necessarily on a north-south basis, but on a string of localized issues, secession being one of them. At the national level, the Democrats also split this time on a north-south line. Now, in the governor's election, there's a very bitter contest between Rector and Johnson. One of the big issues in this race was, among other things, the state's debt from the real estate bank, the Bank of Arkansas fiasco. You know, that's been more than 20 years. The state's still trying to figure out how to pay for all of it. Now, in the campaign, that Rector is proposing delaying payment of the state debt for 25 years. What debts they have remaining, just agree to pay it later. It's basically give all their creditors an IOU. Instead of using all those tax dollars would have gone to repaying these old debts. Rector's proposing, let's just use this money to build up the infrastructure of the state, particularly railroads. Railroads have been around by some time by this point, rapidly becoming the main way to transport people and goods across the country. And Rector and a number of other leaders in Arkansas believe that Arkansas had a good railroad network that would attract business, settlers, increase commerce in Arkansas. But instead, all this money is going to the sinkhole of debt. Saying today, that's one of the reasons why this issue of the federal budget deficit, the national debt is so important. 20% of your income taxes go to pay just interest on the national debt. So other projects the country could be working on, the country can work on because we're having to pay out much debt from years before, out of the tune of $7 trillion. I remember what political writer P.J. O'Rourke once said about the power of money. So giving power of money to Congress is like giving liquor and car keys to teenage boys. Which brings us back to the 1860 election. I guess there was plenty of liquor flying, but on election day, Rector ended up winning in a very bitter contest, essentially breaking control of the dynasty. It was a very narrow margin, just 3,000 votes separating Rector and Johnson. 31,578 votes, 52.5% for Rector, and for Johnson, 28,622. 47.5%. So the power of the dynasty was broken for the first time in the history of the state period. Early after this, the dynasty would never really recover. you have the periodic Conway or Sevier holding office here or there, but they'd never be quite the same political force again. Civil War, Reconstruction, and the aftermath of Reconstruction, the power of this one small group was lost in the mix. Now, for Congress, Hyman wins re-election to the Northern District. And the Southern District, you have for his second term in the office, Albert Rust. He's from El Dorado. Story about Rust. He came to this area, he's 19 years old, from Virginia, moving out on his own. He came when the area was still a territory, just when the county was being organized in the late 1820s. And he had a little storehouse, a little place there in Champenois. He was a surveyor, helping set up all the land claims. And Union County was organized, looking for a permanent site, both for a warehouse, and they looked for a courthouse. And since Rust had this kind of warehouse, a little storage building, one of the few permanent structures in Champenois, which was at that time a county seat, they decided to make Albert Rust's storehouse the county courthouse. Rust agreed and said as long as the county seat is in Champenois, that storehouse will be the courthouse. Well, a few years later, they ended up moving the county seat to El Dorado, building the old courthouse downtown before it burned down. And Rust moved out here with it, practicing law for a number of years and starting 2 terms in Congress. Later than it being a Confederate general in the Civil War. An interesting character. Well, Rust is a Hyndman ally, elected with Hyndman's help. I'd say Rust had been defeated in his term, had bid for re-election in 1858, but came back in 1860. And Hyndman has now established himself pretty much as the preeminent power in Arkansas. He is responsible for electing the governor, both congressmen, a fair number of legislators. So he can pretty much kind of call the shots. And what he was calling for was disunion, secession of Arkansas. I mean, he had a lot of important, prominent people behind him, but did he have everyone behind him? So it turned out that's really not the case. On the presidential side, you have to have an interesting election in the state. Now, nationally, for the Democrats, Stephen A. Douglas, the senator from Illinois, had been the leading candidate. He was a nationally known figure, been a leader on a number of issues, including the 1850 Compromise, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, although it was more of a disaster. And no one expected that Douglas would get the nomination easily and then probably be elected president. Well, in the late 1850s, the administration of President James Buchanan, while that changed, primarily for issues in Kansas. Kansas, by the late 1850s, was in its own civil war of the both free state and slave state factions fighting for control of the Kansas territory. And there's some political chicanery. The pro-slavery forces that gained control of the territorial legislature and the state and the Constitutional Convention and engineered a constitution that would make Kansas a slave state. They call it a Lecompton Constitution. But these pro-slavery forces had so stacked the deck that essentially their choice was to vote for the Constitution with slavery or vote against the Constitution and slavery would remain in Kansas. So either way, up or down the Constitution, slavery would remain intact in Kansas. After 3 elections on this issue, the Free Territory forces won. And during this whole debacle, Douglas had backed the Free Territory forces. So at the Compton Constitution, the election was overruled for, and the engineering of the voting was illegal. It was illegitimate. The ballot boxes were stuffed. Questions were that people were put in an illegitimate way. And so they said, this is wrong. We need to we need to allow free elections in Kansas, not this engineered stuffed ballot box, backroom deal kind of system. But the president, Buchanan, backed the slave territory forces. This caused a very bitter rift to the Democratic Party. Though Buchanan's not very popular, he and his supporters caused enough damage to Douglas that is starting to damage his prospects for the 1860 nomination. And with sectional tensions at a fever pitch in 1860, the Democrats kind of shoot themselves in the foot by holding their national convention in the worst location possible, Charleston, South Carolina, the most intense anti-union city in the Union at that point. Now, Southern delegates tried to push forward a pro-slavery platform, one that would openly defend slavery. Douglas refuses to support it. And after Douglas and the northern delegates shoot that down, a bunch of the southern delegates walk out. Delegates from Delaware, Georgia, South Carolina. 6 out of the 8 Arkansas delegates, the Democratic National Convention, walk out of the convention to protest. 2 of them ended up staying. So the Northern Democrats adjourned the convention, reconvened in Baltimore, where they nominated Stephen A. Douglas. And the Southern delegates reconvened in Charleston and nominate the Vice President, John C. Breckinridge. Now, Breckinridge, even though he is Vice President, he is favoring secession if any push against slavery is made. Breckinridge will later be a Confederate general himself and later a Confederate cabinet secretary. And since he's from Kentucky, a state that did not secede, he was later charged with treason. The second vice president to be so charged, apart from being Aaron Burr, man who killed Alexander Hamilton. Breckinridge, though, was later pardoned. It's a good faith effort to let the wings of the nation heal. A third candidate, border states were petrified of the possibility that the Civil War could be on its way. So the former Whigs, his party was gone, but the voters still kind of a political limbo, kind of politically homeless. They come together with a number of dissident Democrats and form what's called the Constitutional Union Party, which is dedicated to preserving the Union at all costs. They briefly consider Texas Governor Sam Houston, but they dropped him in favor of former Tennessee Senator John Bell. Abraham Lincoln won the nomination for the Republicans. Even though he had at this point that his name was a one-term Congress, he had lost to Douglas in the election of the U.S. Senate in 1858. But it very quickly became a very powerful voice in the Republican Party, almost becoming the vice presidential candidate in 1856, the party's first national election. Lincoln is, even though he's always written he was disgusted by slavery, and his personal purpose was to get rid of slavery, politically and publicly he took the position that what they call a free soiler, simply trying to limit the expansion of slavery in the territories, is basically contain slavery where it is. Lincoln tried to be conciliatory in the election, but the South was convinced the Republican Party was the party of abolitionists, and nowhere in the South were Republicans even on the ballot. So in Arkansas, there are only 3 people running for president, 3 people on the ballot: Douglas, Breckinridge, and Bell. Now, the Hyndman forces are backing Breckinridge. Not a lot of people are backing Douglas. A few more backing Bell. He gets a number of prominent people behind him. The Arkansas Gazette endorses John Bell. Interestingly enough, the Hyndman forces, Russ breaks with them over the issue of Breckinridge and backs Douglas instead. Trying to go for national political unity, national party unity. The dynasty, hoping to repair its forces, kind of allies itself with Breckinridge, with the Hyndman, and again backing Breckinridge. The dynasty is hoping if they could maybe bring Hyndman in, they might be able to kind of repair their fortunes. Kind of thinking of kind of an Archibald Yale kind of figure, someone who is independent, but someone who is allied with them, so would not be actively trying to defeat them. Well, it didn't work for the dynasty, so what ended up happening was Breckinridge ended up winning Arkansas, 53% of the vote. Bell gets 37%, and Douglas gets 10%. Selection in Arkansas goes to Breckinridge. Back to the states from Texas, Arkansas, on over to Carolinas, were all carried by Breckinridge nationally. Douglas, even though he was on the ballot in these states, essentially was not a factor in the election in the South. Essentially came in a contest between Breckinridge and Bell in the South. But in the North, where Breckinridge was not on the ballot, essentially came a contest between Douglas and Lincoln. From this time, the North's political strength is so powerful compared to the South that Lincoln won the election without being on the ballot anywhere in the South, without carrying a single Southern state or even being on the ballot in a single Southern state. Still, only just less than 40% of the popular vote, Lincoln was able to win a majority in the Electoral College and won the popular vote very decisively. Missouri was carried by Douglas, one of the 2 states that he did carry the whole election. Missouri, he split to New Jersey with Lincoln. Say Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia ended up going for Bell. So at this point, it had become clear after the election that Lincoln would become president. So there are no uniform election days at this point. Different states were holding their elections on different days. But rapidly becoming clear Lincoln would become the winner by the time it became official, December 1860. South Carolina immediately secedes from the Union. And 6 other states will follow, all in the Deep South. Now, Arkansas is not in that first wave of secession. See, secession takes place in 2 parts. First part is that period between December 1860 and February 1861, immediately after the election. And this would be 7 states seceded. The second phase would be April to May of 1861, after Fort Sumter. So what's happened is a Union Army is going to hold its position at Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. Confederate forces will fire on it. The Union Army will evacuate the fort, but Lincoln will call for volunteers to put down the insurrection in the South. It's calling for volunteers to fight South Carolina and the Confederacy. And at this point, many of these border southern states feel like they cannot be fighting their neighbors, and if this is what it means to stay in the Union, they're going to leave too.